In this chapter, we'll consider the issue of race and ethnicity. We'll think about the concept of race and discuss the fact that it's a social construct and more of a myth than a reality. We'll think about the issues of prejudice and discrimination and learn about the concept of institutional discrimination. We'll also consider different social phenomena, population shifts, and the idea of assimilation and multiculturalism.
Our text starts with a discussion of the Tuskegee experiment, where the U.S. Public Health Service had black men in Alabama sign up for a social club that gave them transportation to a medical clinic and free medical services for life, while in reality, the men were being studied for the effects of untreated syphilis. The author uses this example to help us understand that racial and ethnic relations in this country have a troubled history, even after the dismantling of slavery. Our text chapter begins with a discussion of the concept of race, and that the concept itself is a myth. While humans come in a very large variety of ranges of sizes, proportions, with various facial, skin, and hair characteristics, there are no pure races. These variations flow from one to another, with no concrete distinctions. Human genome mapping shows that 99.6% of our genetic material is common to all of us. These minute variations makes it impossible to create distinct and concrete characteristics. Neither is there a fixed number of races. The terms and categories of a specific race are arbitrary. Some scientists claim there are only 2 races, while others claim there are thousands. And there is no one superior race. Interestingly enough, most people that lay claim to a specific race generally see their own race as superior. Regardless, the general public continues to believe in these myths about race. And what your text author wants to emphasize is just how dangerous this myth is, particularly when a superior group attempts to annihilate entire groups of people simply due to their perceived racial identity or ethnicity. We need to distinguish race from ethnicity as well. While in general, race would refer to a group of people with similar characteristics, and most sociologists would emphasize that race is a social construct and not real, ethnicity, on the other hand, refers to a shared culture, a shared sense of belonging to a common ancestry or cultural heritage. An example from the text are the Jewish people, who are more properly considered an ethnic group, even though some people refer to them as a racial group. There is a difference between race and ethnicity, and this chart helps to illustrate several key differences. For the most part, race is thought of as a biological category, and don't forget, we have to emphasize that this is more myth than fact. While ethnicity is accepted by the group, and is more cultural in nature. A minority group of people are those that are singled out for unusual treatment and who regard themselves as objects of collective discrimination. Their physical traits or cultural traditions are considered inferior to the dominant group, and the minority group often intermarries within their group. What makes a group a minority group is not merely the size of the group, but also their lack of access to power. For example, females are a numerical majority in the U.S., but they are a political minority because they have less access to power and generally don't have as many opportunities to earn the same wages as men. Minority groups emerge through the expansion of political boundaries. An example is the change in status of Mexicans living in Texas when the Americans took over the Southwest in 1848. Prior to that war, the Mexicans in Texas had been a dominant group. After the war, the Mexicans in Texas became a political minority. A second way that groups become minorities is through migration to a new territory. It can be voluntary, as in the Mexican immigrants that come to the U.S. across the border today, or involuntary, as in the slaves that were captured in Africa and brought to the U.S. to be sold for labor. If we have a heightened sense of identity, we start to think in terms of us and them. Our sense of ethnic identity varies from person to person. Some people have a very strong sense of ethnic identity, and usually these people tend to be somewhat less discriminatory. Sociologist Ashley Doan states that one sense of ethnic identity is based on 4 factors: relative size of one's group, that group's power, that they feel as if they were different from the national identity, and that the group experiences discrimination. Ethnic work describes how we construct our ethnicity. It's how an individual enhances and maintains their group's distinctive identity. We do this through clothing, food, language, religious practices, and holidays. Sometimes people work to recover their ethnic heritage. They might do things like trace their family lines or visit the country of origin.